Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Reading in the Dark. Byron here. Welcome also to January 1st. It is 2019. How awesome is that? I don't know about you, but I actually had a moment a couple of days ago on the 31st. Oh, hi Phillip. I actually had a moment a couple of days ago on the 31st when I was at work, and I was thinking to myself, wow, we have a new year starting, and it's like a fresh slate, and as much as that kind of doesn't exactly mean anything, it's just a number, it also does kind of mean something if you allow it to, and it was sort of exciting to me to think about having a new year. And frankly, I was so excited to take down all of my Christmas decorations. I came home today from work, and I pulled into my garage, turned off my car, and I didn't even go in the house or close the garage door before going out into the yard and just coiling up all the Christmas lights, unplugging them, and putting them on my front porch to take inside later. I was so excited, and I love Christmas, and I love the holidays, and I like getting into it, but I was so ready. I am so ready for it to be 2019, January, holidays are over, normalcy returns, I'm like into it. So happy January, happy 2019. It is going to be an amazing year, and I'm going to read 100 books, we hope. So I'm going to do my TBR for January, and this is kind of an interesting TBR because, well, for a few reasons. It's kind of a complicated TBR because I'm finishing up 2 reads that I'm in the middle of right now, and I'm doing a readathon, and I'm trying to knock out as many of my sort of New Year's resolutions or 2019 goals as I possibly can, and I have decided to put Phillip to work for this channel after all of the times that he has interrupted me and just caused general mayhem in the land. I decided, hey, you know what? If you are really that in need of a job, I'm going to give you a job. And if you watched my my goals video, you already know what I'm talking about. I thought it would be fun to do a variation on the TBR jar thing, which was to have a couple of books that I'm choosing between, which I could pull out of a jar, although in this case I did not, because my jar is not ready yet. And then I have 2 tennis balls, one with a 1 on it and one with a 2 on it. Assign a number to each of the 2 books, and then throw both tennis balls, and then throw both tennis balls to Phillip at the same time and see which one he brings back. Because he always brings one back. Like, he gets a little stressed trying to decide between them, and then he brings one back. So that's what I did today, and you're going to see that in a second. So the current reads that I want to finish by the end of this week are The Shuddering by Ania Ahlborn. I started this book a couple nights ago. I'm about 40% of the way through it, and it's fine. I'm not in love with it, but it's cute. I think some of the characters are maybe not to my liking very much, and their sort of interpersonal drama is a little bit silly to me, and I don't think they're very likable. But, you know, I haven't gotten to the climax of the book yet. And then the other book that I'm in the middle of is The Persian Boy by Renault, the second book in the Alexander the Great historical fiction trilogy. And I really miss it, and I need to get back to it. So I'm going to finish those books. And then I'm going to read the 3rd book in that trilogy, which is called Funeral Games by Mary Renault. And I really don't know anything about this book except to say that it's the 3rd book in the trilogy, so I want to read it. I'm pretty sure the book I'm reading right now, The Persian Boy, is the one that people love the most. And I really do love it, but I'm obviously going to finish the trilogy. So that's the next book I'm going to read. After that, I'm going to read Hamlet by William Shakespeare, in case you didn't know. Because I have a subscription to the Shakespeare Theater here, which is where I saw in Orlando, which is where I saw A Christmas Carol a few days ago, and they're doing Hamlet, but they're also doing a production of a play adaptation of the novel Gertrude and Claudius, which was written by John Updike, which is a prequel to Hamlet, and gives a backstory into the relationship between Claudius and Gertrude. And I haven't read that, and I don't think I'm going to. I just want to see the play. But what they're doing is they're doing Hamlet, and they're also doing Gertrude and Claudius. And they're running Hamlet, and then they're overlapping Hamlet with their production of Gertrude and Claudius, using the same actors and using the same set. So what you can do is you can see both plays, and you can choose which order you want to see them in. And I haven't decided which order I'm going to do it in. It's sort of like the Star Wars prequel versus original movie question. But since I'm going to be seeing Hamlet because I have a season ticket to the theater, and I will be seeing Gertrude and Claudius, I figured I may as well read Hamlet. So I'm going to read Hamlet. And that's going to be a shortish read. And then I'm going to go ahead and read the 2nd book in the Star Trek Discovery series, which is called Drastic Measures by Dayton Ward. This book centers on the backstory of Captain Philippa Georgiou. And I love that character, and I love Michelle Yeoh, the actress who plays her, so I'm excited for that. And the reason I'm going to skip ahead to this, even though it's a recent purchase for me, is because that series is actually coming back towards the end of this month, and I just want to kind of get back in the groove of Star Trek Discovery. And then we kind of come to the New-Years-A-Thon reads. So the New-Years-A-Thon takes place between, started already at midnight on the 1st through the 7th, and it has 5 challenges, and you're only really required to finish 2 of them. So I'm going to go through the challenges and tell you what I'm doing for each one, because they add to my TBR. The first is to read a 5-star prediction, and for me, I have chosen The House of Broken Angels by Luis Alberto Urrea. I've had this on my TBR for a very long time. I listened to an interview with the author on Writers on Writing, which is why I bought the book. The House of Broken Angels also is a book that I had originally selected to read for Contemporary-a-thon way back in September of 2018. And I never got to because of Blindness by Jose Saramago destroying my life. So it's just like, it needs to be done. This is a story, by the way, about a large Latino family that comes together for a funeral. And the big family is all coming together for the funeral, and then while that is taking place, the mother dies as well. So then there's going to be another funeral. So it's sort of like they're coming together for a celebration of life party vibe, and then there's another death. I think it's going to be a 5-star book because I read a sample of the first chapter, and I really dug the writing. He's funny and insightful, and it's a story about family, and it's a story about life and death and lives lived, and I really get into that stuff. So that's my 5-star prediction. The second challenge is to read a book that you meant to read in 2018. Now, of course, I have like 100 of those. But the book that I have chosen is Asymmetry by Lisa Halliday. This is another book that I originally selected for Contemporary-a-thon. I wanted to get as many of my Contemporary-a-thon stragglers out of the way as I possibly could. This has an apt title. It tells the story of, well, it's 3 separate stories, but they all kind of connect in a subtle way, and they're all written in different ways. I think they're written in different voice in terms of like first person, third person, etc., that kind of thing. And I know that one of the sections is told in the form of an interview, and it has something to do with 9/11 maybe, and the end of the year, and I've just heard nothing but really great things about it, and it sounds really sort of inventive and experimental and cool. The third challenge was to read it says choose the 12th, 19th, 20th, and 39th books in your TBR, place them in a jar, and then choose which one to read. Rather than do that, I basically just made it very, very easy on myself, and I went down my list, and I wrote down the 12th, 19th, 20th, and 39th books. And then I basically was texting one of my best friends in New York, Happy New Year, and I said, pick a number, and he did, and he chose 19. So I'm going to read the 19th. However, the 19th book on my TBR is Clockwork Cairo. This is an anthology of science fiction, fantasy, steampunk stories of Egypt. So that's number 19 on my TBR. The fourth challenge is to read a book that is being made into a movie, and for that I chose Bird Box by Josh Malerman. It's been made into a movie already on Netflix. I've heard good things about it. I've heard some people were disappointed in it, but it's just a movie. It's not a series. It's not a huge commitment. And I wanted to see it, so I figured I would read it, and I own it. And what I thought I would do, because my TBR was getting kind of long, is that between challenges 3 and 4, Clockwork Cairo and Bird Box by Josh Malerman, I thought that those would be the 2 that I would ask my illustrious assistant here, who is currently on the floor next to me, to help me choose between. So what I did was I labeled 2 tennis balls, 2 fresh tennis balls, so that they would smell exactly the same, and he would have no reason to prefer one over the other. I wrote a 1 on one of the tennis balls, and I wrote a 2 on the other tennis ball. The first tennis ball is a stand-in for Clockwork Cairo, and the second tennis ball was a stand-in for Bird Box by Josh Malerman. And I threw them after getting, Phillip had to get warmed up because he chases the tennis balls a lot, and then he brings them back. And then I threw them both at the same time to see which one he'd bring back. And this is what happened. Bring me one, Phillip. Oh, he can't decide. Bring me the ball. Oh, who'd you choose? Who'd you choose? Okay, let me have it. 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 Oh, Clockwork Cairo wins. You did a good job, Phillip. So I did that, and it was really fun. And Phillip performed magnificently. So that's it. I am going to be reading the one that my dog chose for me, my sweet boy, Phillip, chose number 1. That is the book that he thought, after thinking long and hard about it, I'm sure, that I should read. Phillip chose number 1, which was Clockwork Cairo, which is kind of the one that I was hoping he would choose. So well done, Phillip. So Clockwork Cairo. So I'm not going to be reading Bird Box by Josh Malerman because, again, my TBR is getting kind of lengthy. I will read it, but I'm not going to be reading it in January unless I happen to have extra time. But I doubt that's going to happen because the final challenge in this readathon that I am reading a book that applies to, but I was going to read anyway, was to choose a resolution you think you can start or finish during the readathon. And the resolution that I am referring to was my 2019 goal to read more fantasy. So the book that I chose was Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin. Now, I recently bought this. This is a big, chunky 700 book fake history that is a prequel to a Game of Thrones. I'm a little nervous to read this book, but I want to try because I really loved A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Now those were 3 novellas and they were in, a standard narrative format. And this is not a novel format. This is a history style. So it's a little drier depending on your taste. And I've heard some people say that this book was really entertaining because the sort of imaginary historian character that Martin came up with to write the book in his voice is really entertaining, and how he had some tiffs with some of his primary sources in researching the supposed history when writing this supposed history book, that all of that aspect of it is really creative and really fun. I've also heard some people say that it was a really dry, really boring book filled with telling and no showing. And Martin said that himself. He's like, it's a lot of telling and not a lot of showing because that's the style of book it is. He's writing it as a history. So the idea is that this Maester, I forget his name, is the historian, and he's writing a history book about the history of the Targaryen dynasty. This is the family, by the way, in case you don't know Game of Thrones. The Targaryen family is the family that has the blood of the dragon in them. So this is like the coolest family. They're also the ones that sometimes go crazy. So this is a prequel. Ooh, I just spit on everything. I'm excited to read it, and I hope I enjoy it. I hope it's not horribly dry and boring for me, because I want to read a Game of Thrones. And I've chosen a lot for January. Here's the deal. I'm trying to read 100 books in this year, so I'm trying to read at least 8 books a month to get close to my goal. And a Game of Thrones returns to TV in April. So theoretically, I would like to read Fire and Blood and then the 5 books by April, meaning 2 books a month. And they're big chunky books and it may not be possible, but I'm going to do my best. So my TBR for January includes basically 2 half books, finishing the Shuddering and the Persian Boy, and then reading. I'm going to start it right away, Fire and Blood, and read it kind of concurrently with the other books in case I need to take breaks. And then Asymmetry by Lisa Halliday, Funeral Games by Mary Renault, Hamlet, which should be a one-evening adventure, Star Trek Discovery, Drastic Measures by Dayton Ward, The House of Broken Angels, and Clockwork Cairo. And that will be also, I think, a pretty easy read and really entertaining because I love science fiction, fantasy anthologies, and steampunk Egypt stories. Come on. So that's my TBR. It's ambitious, but they're all going to be ambitious this year because I'm trying to read 100 books. So that's what I'm going to try to do. So in this one TBR, I am finishing my current reads, finishing a series, starting on my fantasy thing, reading George R.R. Martin, and taking part in a readathon all at the same time. So we're going to see what happens. Maybe I'm crazy, or maybe it's going to be brilliant. We'll find out. That's my TBR. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any comments like, hey, you're crazy, this is never going to happen, leave them in the comment field below. But don't say that, actually. Just say, hey, you're brilliant, and you can do it, buckaroo. Yeah, but leave those comments in the box below, and if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you love this video, hit that subscribe button, and you can hit the bell icon to be sure that you get notified when new videos are posted, and I will see you all in the next video, and until then, I will be here in the dark reading. Happy reading, guys!